What if the US had a railgun at Midway? June 4th, 1942, 1,000 miles northwest of Hawaii. 108 Japanese aircraft thunder through the dawn sky. Zeros, Kates, Vals, the most experienced naval aviators on the planet, aimed at a tiny coral atoll called Midway. Below them, 4 fleet carriers bristle with planes, fuel, and enough firepower to finish what Pearl Harbor started. But let's change one thing. Cutting through the dark water south of Midway was something no one in 1942 understands. A USS Zumwalt, 15,000 tons of stealth destroyer, dropped into a battle it was never built to fight. Except this time, its missile systems are cold. Its VLS cells are dark. Every weapon on board is offline. Except one. Bolted to the foredeck is a weapon the US Navy spent decades trying to build and ultimately abandoned. An electromagnetic railgun. No gunpowder, no explosives, just 78 megawatts of raw electrical force accelerating a metal projectile to Mach 5 and throwing it over 100 nautical miles with enough kinetic energy to punch through steel like a finger through wet paper. So, what happens when the most advanced gun on Earth is unleashed during one of history's most pivotal naval battles? Can one ship and one weapon change the course of the Pacific War? Or is it just one gun against 4 carriers, hundreds of aircraft, and the full fury of Imperial Japan? First, what makes this weapon so different from anything in 1942? A conventional naval gun uses a controlled explosion to hurl a shell downrange. The railgun skips the explosion entirely. 2 conductive rails carry a massive electrical current, generating an electromagnetic field that launches a projectile faster than any chemical propellant ever could. Mach 5 at impact. Over 100 nautical miles of range. 6 to 12 rounds per minute. And because there's no explosive propellant in the projectile, there's no magazine full of charges waiting to detonate from a lucky enemy hit. The damage is purely kinetic. At Mach 5, the impact alone is catastrophic. The same physics that makes a meteor devastating applied to a fist-sized rod of metal arriving with zero warning and zero sound. The catch? It needs enormous sustained power to fire, a platform big enough to generate it, and accurate targeting data on a moving target. In a 1942 ocean, no GPS, no satellites, no data links. Getting that targeting data is going to be the hardest problem in this entire fight. The railgun is theoretically a carrier killer, but theory and a churning Pacific are two very different things. Here's what it's up against. Admiral Nagumo's strike force is the finest naval aviation package ever assembled. 4 fleet carriers, Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu, carrying 272 aircraft flown by pilots who've been fighting and winning since before most Americans knew there was a war. These aren't rookies. They're the best in the world at the peak of their game. Behind them, battleships, cruisers, destroyers, over 100 warships total. The Yamato lurks in the broader formation, armed with 18-inch guns that fire shells the size of compact cars. Cruisers carry scout float planes. Destroyers sweep forward in tight screens. Japan's fatal weakness, historically, was information. US codebreakers cracked enough of Japan's communications to know the attack was coming, which let Nimitz position his carriers for the ambush that actually won the battle. The Zumwalt doesn't have Nimitz carriers, but it has Midway's PBY Catalina patrol planes fanning out every morning and its own Spy 3 radar, which sees surface contacts with a clarity 1942 Japan cannot imagine. Whether that's enough is the whole question. Before dawn, Midway's PBYs are already airborne. At 0530, one radios back a contact. Japanese carriers northwest of Midway, bearing and distance confirmed. The Zumwalt's combat center has what it needs to start building a firing solution. The ship pushes north at 30 knots. Here's the problem. The railgun's range is over 100 nautical miles, but accuracy at that distance depends on GPS guidance that won't exist for another 50 years. At extreme range, against a carrier making 25 knots and capable of changing course mid-flight, the math gets brutal. A railgun projectile takes roughly 2 minutes to cover 100 miles. In 2 minutes, a maneuvering carrier moves over a kilometer from where you aimed. The Zumwalt has to close. Get within range where flight time is short enough that the firing solution actually holds. That means driving toward 4 carriers and hundreds of aircraft with no missiles and no air defense worth the name. That's the tension at the heart of this fight. The Japanese first wave lifts off at 0430, 108 planes, tight formation, headed for Midway. They don't know the Zumwalt exists. Their radar can't see it. Its angular hull returns a radar signature the size of a fishing boat. To 1942 eyes and 1942 electronics, the most powerful gun railgun afloat is invisible. When the lead formation closes to intercept range, the railgun opens up. At 6 to 12 rounds per minute, it is not a wall of fire. It can't swat down 108 planes the way a missile battery might. What it can do is reach out and erase a strike leader at extreme range with no visible source. No muzzle flash, no smoke trail, no warning. Just a sudden violent impact and a plane disappearing from formation. Then another. Veteran pilots who've never been touched find aircraft vanishing around them with no explanation and no enemy in sight. The psychological crack is instant. Formations break, pilots search empty sky. The attack on Midway still gets through, damaged, disrupted, leaderless, but through. The island takes hits. This is not a clean intercept. The railgun buys chaos, not immunity. Meanwhile, the Zumwalt is still driving north. By mid-morning, it closes to effective range. The Spy 3 holds continuous tracks on all 4 carriers. The first railgun salvo goes downrange toward Akagi. The impact is unlike anything that the fleet has ever experienced. No shell arc, no visible approach. The flight deck simply erupts, a hypersonic rod arriving faster than sound carries any warning. Planes spotted for the second wave are destroyed. Fuel lines rupture. Fires spread, but the Akagi doesn't sink immediately. Carriers die from fires and secondary explosions, from flooding and progressive structural failure, not clean instant kills. The railgun punches holes and starts fires. It doesn't finish the job in a single salvo. And now Japan knows something is out there. Nagumo vectors everything he has left toward the contact. Zeros and dive bombers turn toward the Zumwalt in force. Without missiles, without CIWS, the destroyer's only air defense is the railgun itself, and shooting aircraft is a completely different problem than shooting carriers. Smaller targets, faster targets, coming from multiple directions. The hit rate drops sharply. Planes get through. Bombs walk across the water. Some land close. Some land closer. The Zumwalt is fast and maneuvers hard, but it's taking damage. Worse, sustained high-rate fire is punishing the railgun barrel. Thermal buildup. The rate of fire starts dropping. The engineering team is fighting the gun as much as they're fighting Japan. During a brief window when the Japanese air attack pulls back to rearm, a second carrier, Kaga, takes multiple hits. Flight deck wrecked. Out of the fight, Soryo takes one round that starts a serious fire but keeps maneuvering. Hiryu, furthest out, never comes within clean range before the gun goes cold entirely. Barrel wear, power rerouting, battle damage to the distribution system. The engineering team is working flat out. It's not enough. The Zumwalt breaks off south toward Midway, trailing smoke. 2 carriers heavily damaged and out of the fight. 2 still operational. Midway holds. The invasion fails, but this is not the clean 4-carrier sweep of actual history, and that difference matters enormously. The real victory at Midway wasn't just the carriers sunk, it was the pilots lost. Hundreds of Japan's best naval aviators went down in those ships or during the battle. The railgun scenario kills ships differently. Fewer pilots die, Japan's recovery is painful but faster. The Pacific War grinds on longer, bleeds more, costs more. There's also something worth sitting with. The railgun was real. The US Navy spent years and hundreds of millions of dollars developing it, tested it, proved the physics worked, then quietly suspended the program in 2021 and walked away. Barrel wear, integration challenges, budget priorities. The weapon that might have rewritten Midway exists today only in test footage and congressional budget documents. Whether that was the right call is a question the next war may answer for us. Or what do you think would have happened? Let us know in the comments. And if you're curious what happens when a modern carrier takes on the entire Roman Empire, check out the video on your screen now. Thanks for watching.